We've got 10 items from Amazon that may make your life a little easier. Well, maybe it doesn't make it easier, but maybe it makes it a little more professional looking, or maybe it does both. But we've got 10 items that we think everyone working on vehicles and other components as well may need from Amazon. You don't have to purchase these from Amazon. You can buy them from Walmart. Well, some of them, and maybe some of them at O'Reilly or AutoZone or Snap-on or whoever. But there are many of these that you will save a lot of money if you are maybe sitting at home at night, buying on Amazon and buying them in more bulk, if you will, than maybe little packages that you would have to if you bought them at some of these brick and mortar stores. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, let's get started with 10 tools and accessories or supplies or inventory from Amazon. So first thing we have up is a hydraulic crimping tool. Now, why do you need something like this? Well, I'm going to explain why. Many of you may not, but I would say if you're working on vehicles very much, when you come across battery connections and larger crimp terminals, you need a hydraulic press, or you can use the hammer ones, things like that. I like the hydraulic ones better. I think they do a better crimp. And with that, we might as well mention one of the second items on our list as well, and those are larger ring terminal connectors. So these are larger than your typical just 12 gauge wire connectors or 20 gauge wire connectors. So you can see we get into the large size here. Obviously you can buy any kits you want to, but this one goes from 1/4 inch AWG 4 down to AWG 8 in 5/16. So you get larger eyelet sizes, but you get 5/16 and 1/4 inch as far as the opening here. So larger opening that if you tried to, take your wire pliers, your wire stripping pliers and crimp them there, you don't have a chance. And definitely something like this, you're definitely not going to crimp these with. So to do these right, you need a hydraulic crimper or some type of manual crimper. Again, they sell the ones that have the, you take like a hammer and put it in a vise and you whack them a few times. But anyway, the hydraulic is a lot smoother operation. And you see it comes with a bunch of dies as well. Now you open it up like this. So you open it and it opens up the jaws, and then you close it like this and you start pumping and it closes the jaws up. Again, you'll see me go to the off, and now it slides that open so we can take the different dies out. Now, one of the things I noticed on this that, you can get different hydraulic presses or hydraulic crimping tools, but on these they had marked, on this one was a 4. Well, that's in squared millimeters, so millimeters squared. Well, that typically in the US we're dealing with AWG wire sizes. So I just quickly took my permanent marker and found online a table that showed the the cross reference between like a 4 millimeter squared, and that would be say a 12 AWG. Now these won't always match up, but it kind of gives you an idea to start with. And since this one is a 6 AWG connector, I'm going to look for there's 8 to 10, and there's number 8, and there's number 6. I'm actually going to back down and use the number 8s here. And it's really easy. You just slide these in like this. These kind of slide in a track, and then they fit there in the press, and same way here. So you don't have to pull any pins or anything like that. And I'm going to turn this to on. And by the way, typically you need 2 hands to do this. And I'll go ahead and get this started. In fact, I could even put this ring terminal in here. Need to back that off a touch. And you can even mount this in a vise and then use this more one-handed. So I'm going to take a wire and I'm going to put it in there. And then I'm just going to press until it bottoms out. And then I'm just going to loosen it, and that backs off. And now we have a manual crimp on that wire. And you can see I'm not pulling that off. So that's tool number 1 accessory or supplies or inventory number 2, if you will. This kit right here, this is like a 125 piece kit, again, of the larger eyelets going up to 4 AWG, and this runs 18 bucks. I think this kit right here, and it kind of stores all these dies in place. You have to store one of the dies in the tool itself. And I believe this is like $35 or $36. Yeah, this is $36. So far we're at 36 and 18. And again, the ability to connect this to get a good, secure manual connection and not trying to use some sort of pliers or something like that. You're just never going to get that type of connection with a set of normal wire crimping pliers. Next up is a set of ratcheting non-insulated crimpers. Now, they also sell these where you can remove the jaws, things like this. This is just a simple pair. I think these run $24. So let's go ahead and put down our amount here. And by the way, we purchased all these, not sponsored by anything. And what these are for non-insulated terminals. So let's bring in some non-insulated terminals. This is a 330 piece kit. It's nice to have. You've got eyelets, you've got the forks as well, so fork and rings, and in number 10 and 1/4 inch, 5/16 and 3/8. That's the size of the ring. And then we get it in AWG 16 to 22, 14 to 16, and 10 to 12. And you can see here, so I've got a 10 to 12 connector, and I'll grab some 12 AWG wire. And I'm going to use, by the way, I don't have these crimpers on here. These are a set of Milwaukee's. I like these. Seem to work well, but most people already have a set of, or did I say crimpers? Wire strippers. Most people already have a set of wire strippers, but if you don't, these are a great set. But again, that's pretty common that most people already have. Now that's actually pretty large for that. Let me step down to a smaller size, but you will see, I think this might barely fit on there. There we go. And so I've got these manual crimpers here, and it tells me the sizes right here on the top. And I'm just going to line that up. And by the way, I'm going to do 2 crimps here. I'm going to do the first one. And I'm just going to ratchet all the way down. And when I go all the way, it's going to release. And you'll see, put a nice crimp there right on the seam of that connector. Oh, and I can't pull that off. So a good manual connection. Now, these are brazed seams, so the actual seams on the terminals have been tinned or brazed, so they're not just split and kind of separate. Because of having a seam, I typically like to crimp on the back side. So on this one here, I'm going to put it in, and I'm going to crimp on the back side of the connector, which is the non-split area. So let's crimp that down. And now you see that's crimped on the back side. So what do you think? Let's start a little chat there. Should you crimp on the seam, or should you crimp on the back side where you don't have a seam? Again, on both of these, nice solid connection that's not coming apart. So I don't know that there's a problem either way, but just wanted to get your input on what you think is more important, or what you think is more secure, or is there a right or a wrong? So again, these are $24, and this kit here is $22. And I'm a firm believer in non-insulated crimps just because I can see my crimp and make sure that I have a good crimp on there before I move on. When an insulated crimp, you just don't really get to see what's happening with the metal or what's happening with the actual terminal and connector. You just kind of have to view it through that insulation. So that's just me. Also, this gives me the ability, if I want to solder, I can solder. Now let's stay in the same ballpark, and here are some non-insulated butt connectors. So there we had terminal ends, which is your basically everything but your spade connector, so your forks, your ring terminals, and these are butt splice connectors. So we've got a connection, and we need to do a connection here, manual butt connection, then we can slide that on here. And again, crimp there. We got a nice solid crimp right there. And same thing here. Good solid crimp there. So that's going to be when you have to do a butt splice or a butt connection, and you can get in there with crimpers. You can get in there and make a nice solid manual connection there, and these are going to run you $19 for that 220 piece kit. So 19. And let's just show on here, since we've made a butt splice connection, it's a red wire. Let's assume there's 12 volts running through it. You want a good set of heat shrink. Preferably, I like Wireflies just because they claim to be somewhat chemical resistant. I forget what it's made of. I'm not sure if it makes a difference or not. I definitely like to have the adhesive lined when I'm working with heat shrink, just because it gives me a better feel when you see that adhesive ooze out then, and I'll show you here in a moment. Now it brings up another point. So we have the heat shrink tubing. And on a large area like this, start in the center and make sure you're getting a good surrounding heat, and then work your way out. Should be your last, once you know that shrunk there in the middle, work your way out to the ends and make sure that shrinks really good. And you'll see here on the ends as this shrinks out, you'll see the adhesive sticking out the ends of the heat shrink. So not only are we getting a good shrink there, it should be more weather resistant because we have adhesive in there that's heating up, shrinking up, and actually oozing out the end. So it's all surrounded by some sort of adhesive, which should again help in the sealing of that. Now this kit here, I think is a 200 piece kit, runs $15. And I used a rigid cordless heat gun. Milwaukee has them, DeWalt has them, Ryobi has them. I think Ryobi has them. Anyway, several different tool brands have cordless heat guns. I think these get to supposedly 900 degrees and probably cost you somewhere in the $100 range or so, and then you have to have a battery. You don't have to go this route. In fact, this is less than 30 bucks right here. You even have adjustable heat. You have setting 1 and setting 2, and then you can dial this down, which basically just kind of chokes out the air intake, and kind of the less air letting the heating element heat up a little more. And I think it's supposed to go up to, I don't know, it's 1800 watts. I forget the temperature range it's supposed to go to, but it's supposed to get insanely hot. And it does do pretty well. And it also comes with multiple tips in here as well as the tip that is on here. In fact, here's the crimp that we did earlier. So a little heat shrink on there. And then, so this heat gun works just as well, if not a little faster. And again, even on this larger stuff, you can see the adhesive oozing out the ends here. And we got a nice heat shrink covering on our terminal. Now we're getting down to, obviously we've kind of stayed in kind of that wiring realm, and we're going to continue to stay in that for right now. And this is my least favorite of actually connecting joints. But sometimes this is necessary, and sometimes it may even be the best choice possible at the time. And these are the solder seal wire connectors. I'm sure you've seen these, where you've basically got the heat shrink tubing, and they're color coded, and they have the pieces of solder, like a solder ring in there. I see these all the time, whether it be in vehicles or on boats, and I don't want to say most of the time, but many times I see them misused, and I'll show you how in just one moment. So we've got a wire here with a pretty globbed up solder connection. Let's get rid of that. And let's say we're in an area and maybe we need to get this done fast, or maybe it's just in a tight area and we can get there with our tools, but we really can't get in there and do what we need to. I don't know. I'm trying to make a reasoning for using these. But again, I know there are some reasonings, and I know some people just swear by these. But anyway, so what I want to do first, and I've seen videos where you can just butt these up and then use the solder. I'm not going to recommend that, again, because I've seen these misused. So I like to see some sort of manual connection, like a twisting of the wires. But again, sometimes you're kind of at the wires max and maybe you need to actually splice in a piece. But anyway, so I'm going to twist those together. Use my little stand I built here. And we'll see, and by the way, I recommend using the smallest wire or the smallest connector possible that's still going to fit over your wire. And this one's probably not going to fit over the solder ring, so I may be wasting my time. Nope, we did fine. So again, you want to use the smallest connector possible for the actual wire size. So now we've got solder here and we got heat shrink here. Here's what I recommend doing. When you have to use these, you want to take the heat and center it in the middle there. Now, don't move it out just yet, but you want to keep it there. You want to surround that connection. Now I'm going to move out. So what we didn't just heat that up till the heat shrank. We heated it up till that solder actually melted and you actually saw it spread out along the wire. I see it all the time where I'll see the heat shrunk and that solder ring is still about as solid as when it came. But in this case, you can see again, our solder spread out. Here's what I don't like about this. I really can't tell if our wire has actually wicked that solder. And that's very important to me when I'm soldering a connection. When I don't have heat shrink on there, I can actually see it go from a state of kind of a blob sitting on top of that wire to where it's actually absorbing all that solder within all those wires and getting a good solid connection. It's hard to tell right here. I can tell that the solder spread out, and that's what we're definitely looking for. And then we're going to worry about then getting our good connection on the heat shrink. But first, make sure you're centering in that heat there to make sure that solder spreads. I've also seen these to where the heat shrink actually almost kind of starts coming apart or disintegrating before the solder will actually melt. So you want to hit this as quick as possible, get that heat in there, get that solder spread, and do the best you can with that connection. I think they're worth having, I do, but again, it's probably my last recommendation when doing a connection, and these are going to run 22 bucks for this kit. And two more quick tools, or one tool and one accessory or supply, and that is getting some like wire harness tape, so more of a cloth tape rather than using electrical tape. It just has a lot better look on it. This is 1 inch. You can get it in 3/4 inch, but you can start this. And the adhesive is decent on it, but I'm really not buying it for the adhesive. But again, you don't have to wrap this really tight. But this, if the wire loom is deteriorated, you know, the plastic wire loom that you see on the GM cars, things like that, putting this on there just has a lot cleaner and nicer look than electrical tape does. Now you can tear this, but as you can see when I tore it, it's kind of got all these fabric pieces sticking out. So my last and final tool is a set of these, I believe they're Cast King, and what they're for is these are for cutting braided line on fishing lines. If you ever tried to cut braided line, if you're a fisherman, it's just a pain, and I can come in here and this cuts it very, very clean. Now why do I mention that? Because again, these will cut braided line, and many times braided line on regular scissors will just kind of fit in between it. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So here's a piece of the cloth tape. Here's a set of scissors that I really like. They're whisks. These are crescent whisks, and these are great scissors, but watch this. So it cut part of it and then just went right in between. And so you have to kind of whack at it a few times to actually get it to cut, if you can get it to cut at all. But with these, and by the way, these are like $6. Cut it every time. So nice precision set of scissors. And by the way, it comes with a little holster and a little, little lanyard, so you hang these on your toolbox or hang it on your wall, whatever. And they're nice and handy to use. And this cloth tape, I think you can get these 5 rolls for $15. So beats the heck out of buying 3M Super 88 at $8-10 a roll. So $15, $3 a roll on that tape. And again, this is the 1-inch. You can also get it in 3/4. So let's add $15 and $6 for the scissors. So let's add these up. We have 36 and 18. That should bring us to 54, and that should bring us to 78, and that should bring us right at 100. 119, 134, 163, 185, 185. So $206. I thought I spent more than that actually, but anyway, that just gives you an idea of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tools and supplies you can buy that'll make your life better, especially when dealing with electrical work. It will also give you a more professional look as well. Hey, listen, just like we mentioned in the beginning, many of these things and supplies you can buy at your local stores. However, most of the time you have to buy them in, smaller packets that cost more money. Many of them you'll pay as much on a small packet as you would for these big bulk items as well. So that's why if you are sitting at home at night and you start thinking about this, or maybe you see this video, you could actually say, you know what, I need to buy a couple of those things. You don't have to buy them all at once. And also, when you do get these and you do have some bulk items, practice a little bit, use them a little bit. These are just some things that in preparation for this video. This is just some of them. Many of them we threw away practicing with the crimping tool and with the soldering tool and with the heat guns and those sorts of things. And you can take a couple of wires and get a lot of practice in with just a few minutes. So highly recommend that. By the way, these are affiliate links for our Amazon, but you do not have to purchase through that. If you do, we get a few cents of each order or whatever it is. I'm not even sure, but by all means, if you want to search for yourself on Amazon or Walmart or wherever you want to, by all means, go ahead. Hey, be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And if you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And by all means, if you hated our video, well, give us a thumbs down. But would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day. Keep smiling.